Hello and welcome to Creative Foundations. Every week we'll be exploring a new art technique that is foundational for mixed media projects. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on any of these foundational videos. So let's get started on this week's project. So in today's video, we are going to use Tombow Dual Brush Markers in a slightly less conventional way. So basically these Tombow pens are really great for just doing brush lettering. They're great for coloring. They have actually a lot of really good uses, but the one thing that isn't really broad about them is the fact that because they are a blendable ink, you can do a lot of things that are not just coloring or brush lettering with them. So today I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can use these markers in a little bit more of an abstract way, but still using the supplies you have on hand to come up with something really interesting. So these pens have 2 ends. They have more of a brush nib and they have more of a writing nib. Both are good. I almost never use this end. I almost always use the brush nib end on these pens. So let's get started and I will show you different ways you can use these pens in an interesting way. So what you want to start with is take your piece of paper and you want to actually just lay down some color with your Tombow markers onto the page. Again, you don't want to use the tip, you just want to use the edge very lightly. And you can blend colors over top of each other if that's how you prefer to lay out your color. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's about laying down color very, very quickly. And then you start at the top on your lightest color and then you work your way down by taking a little bit of water with a watercolor brush and you just blend this all together. I find that it's not quite of a smooth look as you get from watercolor, but what's nice about it is if you're not one to use watercolor paint, it is quite easy way to play around with the watercolor paint technique without actually having to buy watercolor paint, especially if you already have markers on hand. So again, use what you have. It's always nice to have new supplies and play with new things, but at the same time, it's also important to learn how to use what you have in a different way. So there you go. You have a nice, simple, watercolor-ish background that you can use for making a card. And then, in like this case, where I have a little bit on the side, I can always just use my brush and just pull some of that across. I like using multiple colors so you can do more of a sunset effect, but the other thing you can do is just be a little more monochromatic with your colors. So it's important to figure out that you want colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So on either on the blue purple side or the yellow red side. You have to be careful with combining too much because you can end up with sometimes not quite the result that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to be sticking to blues and purples. And then again, you can run it across. Again, the one thing about that this is different from watercolors, you get a few more brush marks. You can see here where it doesn't really blend quite as perfectly, but again, for kind of a faux watercolor effect using what you have on hand, not a bad way to play with some techniques that you maybe not usually play with. And especially if you have these markers already, like why wouldn't you try something a little bit different, a little bit new? There you go. That's another great background that you can use for something else. I'm going to use a little square piece. It's a little bit easier to manage. So start by adding a little bit of the color directly onto your craft mat. And then what you want to do is take your water sprayer and you want to spritz it. And as you can see, it's actually blending. So using that, and I actually try to spritz my watercolor paper a little bit just to get it activated and get it a little bit lighter to be able to take in water, and then you swipe on through. You can also do this, like I have ink pads I usually do this type of technique with, but again, like if you're a person who does mostly calligraphy and you want to come up with an interesting background, like there you go. It's easy to do, it's easy to come up with, and you get really quick and great results. And again, you can use some of those Tombow colors that are really quite unique to the brand, and that's also really nice. And the last thing I'm going to do is using a piece of cardstock. I'm going to use the Tombows in a way that they're usually used, but then doing something a little bit different with it. So in this case, I'm just going to start drawing some circles. They don't have to be perfect circles. Circles are actually not that easy to draw. If you talk to most artists, circles are not the easiest thing to do. They're not an easy shape to get a perfect circle. But in this case, I do enjoy circles on my art projects because I like the look of them. I like what they do, what they add to a piece. So in this case, I am going to take my wet brush and start taking it and working some of this color into the center. So again, this is one way where you can actually do shapes, but if you wanted a more blended color in the center, why not just use a little bit of the ink to pull it inside? There's also the blender pens, which are great for this as well, but for something that's really quick and easy, this is not a bad way to go about it. You can even try to fix the shape a little bit. Make sure that you have clean water when you go to do the lighter colors on your brush. Now be careful not to have too much water on your brush because it can sometimes not work the best way. And you can decide if you want something that only has a tiny rim of color or if you actually want to see a little bit more of the outline. This is also something you could do over an already inked background, as long as it's dry. There you go. That's another way you can use your Tombow markers to do something a little bit less conventional with it. Another example of this is actually using your brush pens to pull color in a little bit more interesting way. Sometimes you actually do want some lines to show, instead of just doing just a straight watercolor type background. But it's fun to kind of pull it one way or the other as you work. So in this case, I am going to take that color and pull it down. So it'll be darker where the stripes are, and then you can see that the stripes underneath, because I'm not really doing much with them, they're kind of staying as they are, just getting a little bit more muted. So again, if you want to pull colors to the top, and it's also pulling up a little bit of the color as I work along. And again, if you want the kind of sketchy look, but you also kind of want something else popping through, there you go. You have a more interesting color variation in this, and that's by, you won't get this from, I think this is harder to get using a straight watercolor paint. Again, markers have their place, they wick, they allow you to still draw, but have colors that come above and colors that kind of sink back in. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and provide a comment below. I hope that you have a great week, and I will see you next time.